24 hours before my 65th birthday, my daughter-in-law stood in my kitchen and told me the celebration was cancelled. Not because of money, not because of an emergency, but because her mother felt uncomfortable around me. And the worst part, my own son stood there in complete silence. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I simply smiled, picked up my tea, and realized something painful. In the home my late husband and I built together, I had slowly become invisible. For years I cooked their meals, paid their bills, cleaned their messes, funded the lifestyle they proudly showed off online, and somehow I was still treated like the unwanted guest. But that night something inside me changed. I decided the house could keep standing, just not on my back anymore, because if they wanted independence so badly, they were finally going to pay for it themselves. And what happened after that completely changed all of our lives forever. My name is Alina. I'm 65 years old, widowed, and until recently, I believed sacrificing for family was what good mothers did. The house I lived in wasn't just a property, it was my life's work. My late husband Daniel and I spent nearly 30 years building it together. We painted the walls ourselves, planted every flower in the backyard, saved for years to afford the kitchen Brooke now treated like her personal cafe. After Daniel passed away, the silence in the house nearly destroyed me. So when my son Julian asked if he and his wife Brooke could move into the upstairs unit temporarily, just until they got financially stable, I said yes without hesitation. That was 3 years ago, 3 years of temporary. First, things felt normal. Brooke called me sweet names. Julian hugged me every morning before work. We ate dinner together, but slowly little things started changing. Brooke began redecorating rooms without asking. My favorite chair disappeared into the basement because it didn't match the aesthetic. Then came the comments. "You're using the kitchen right now. Can you not vacuum while I'm on Zoom calls? Do you mind staying upstairs tonight? We're having guests." Little by little, I started feeling like a visitor inside my own home, but I ignored it because I loved my son. And because somewhere deep down I was afraid of ending up alone. That fear kept me quiet longer than it should have. Then came my birthday. For weeks I had quietly planned a small dinner, nothing extravagant, just family, good food, candles, maybe a chocolate cake from the bakery Daniel used to love. I even bought a new dress, navy blue, elegant, simple. I remember hanging it carefully in my closet and smiling to myself like a teenager. That's why Brooke's words hit so hard. "Maybe it's better if we cancel this year." Just like that. Like my birthday was some inconvenience. I looked at Julian, waiting for him to say something. Anything, but he just stared at the coffee machine like a frightened child. And in that exact moment, something inside me went cold, not angry, not emotional, clear, painfully clear. That night, while they laughed upstairs with Brooke's mother, I sat alone in the backyard, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the wind moving through the trees. And for the first time in years, I stopped asking myself how to keep everyone else comfortable. Instead, I asked myself one simple question. What about me? The next morning, everything changed. Usually I woke up before everyone. I made coffee, cooked breakfast, packed leftovers for Julian's lunch. Not that morning. I stayed in bed until almost 9 and right on schedule. Chaos erupted downstairs. Cabinet doors slammed. Brooke muttered curses under her breath. Then came the knock. Julian stood outside my bedroom looking confused. "The espresso machine isn't working." I looked up from my book calmly. "It probably needs cleaning." He blinked. Normally I would have fixed it immediately. But this time, I simply smiled and returned to my page. That tiny moment changed the energy in the entire house. For the first time, they realized I wasn't automatically stepping in anymore, and honestly, it felt incredible. Later that afternoon, I opened my banking app. Every month I transferred money into the shared household account, groceries, utilities, streaming services, even Brooke's expensive organic food subscriptions. I stared at the recurring payment for a long moment. Then I cancelled it. No announcement, no dramatic speech, just one quiet click. I remember sitting there afterward feeling strangely calm. Like I had finally stopped bleeding money into people who only noticed me when they needed something. 3 days later, Brooke exploded. She stormed into the living room holding grocery bags with fury written all over her face. "The card declined at the store," she snapped. I looked up slowly. "Oh," I said softly. "I'm only paying for my own expenses now." Her jaw literally dropped. "We all live here," she argued. I gave a small smile. "Yes, but only one of us owns the house." Silence after that sentence was unforgettable. For the first time, Brooke looked nervous and Julian, he looked ashamed. But still, he said nothing. That silence hurt more than Brooke's cruelty ever did. Over the next week, I kept reclaiming pieces of my life. I turned the downstairs guest room into my private art studio again. I moved Brooke's storage boxes into the hallway. I stopped cleaning their dishes, stopped folding their laundry, stopped pretending I existed only to make their lives easier. And the more independent I became, the angrier Brooke got. Because people become very uncomfortable when the person they depended on suddenly stops being convenient. But here's the thing they didn't know. while all of this was happening. I had already started planning my exit, quietly, carefully. Every morning after they left for work, I visited apartments, and eventually I found it. A beautiful modern condo with sunlight pouring through massive windows, peaceful, quiet. Mine. I signed the papers that same day. And for the first time in years I felt excited about the future. Meanwhile, back at the house, reality was finally catching up to them. Utility bills arrived in Julian's name. The grocery account stayed empty. The internet bill transferred over, and suddenly the lifestyle they'd been enjoying for years didn't look so affordable anymore. One evening Julian knocked on my door looking exhausted. "Things are getting expensive," I nodded calmly. "Living independently usually is." Looked stunned hearing his own words reflected back at him. Because that was exactly what they claimed they wanted, independence. But independence without responsibility is just entitlement. 2 weeks before Brooke's mother's birthday party, Brooke announced she'd be hosting a huge celebration at my house. Caterers, decorations, guests everywhere, and then she smiled at me and casually said something that changed everything. "Maybe you should stay somewhere else that weekend. It'll just be easier." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because the audacity was unbelievable. She was trying to remove me from my own home. But instead of arguing, I smiled. And quietly finalized the moving contract the next morning. Friday arrived faster than anyone expected. The second their cars disappeared down the street, the movers arrived. By lunchtime my furniture was gone, my clothes, my books, my memories, all packed into my beautiful new condo. Before leaving, I placed a single envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a formal notice. They could stay in the house if they paid full market rent. Otherwise, they had 90 days to leave. Simple, professional, final. That evening my phone exploded with calls. Brooke screaming, Julian begging, endless messages accusing me of betrayal. But for once I didn't feel guilty, I felt free. Because after years of shrinking myself to keep the peace, I had finally chosen myself. And sometimes that's the bravest thing a person can do. 2 months later, Julian and Brooke moved into a much smaller apartment they could actually afford. The house was rented to a lovely family. And every month, rental checks arrived in my account while I drank coffee peacefully on my sunny balcony. Julian still calls sometimes. Our relationship isn't perfect. But now there are boundaries, respect, distance, and strangely enough, honesty. As for Brooke, I honestly don't think she ever expected me to walk away. She thought loneliness would keep me obedient forever. She was wrong. Because peace is far better than being tolerated in your own home. Now every morning, I sit beside my window with tea in my hands and sunlight on my face. And I finally understand something I wish I'd learned years earlier. Love should never require you to disappear.